Hey everybody. Adam's been working on pronouncing my last name now for 10 days. Really good. So my name is Magga Dora, and
I'm Jennifer Sordell.
we'd like to have your attention just for a moment now. I know we're running a little bit late, but we would like to talk to you about personas, because we have, here at MPACT, we have devised a new approach to personas that addresses some of the criticism that personas have received of late. And we'd just like to tell you a little bit about it. For those that are unfamiliar with personas or need a little refresher, this is a tool that has been very valuable for user experience professionals for a long time. A typical persona represents your audience, and its function is to draw the attention of the development or product team to the customers that you are building for, rather than making assumptions or building off of their own needs or their own preferences. And it's really powerful to bring people together so that they have this joint understanding, and they're a reference point for when people need to make design decisions throughout the process. But as you can see by, moving on, next one, there you go, no, sorry. So as you can see, this is a technique that's widely used, as demonstrated by this simple image search on Google. So I'd just like to take the temperature of the room and ask you to raise a hand if your organization has personas that you use, that you're aware of. Anybody? Okay, great. Keep them up if you could please. Thank you. Now, the next question is, do you actually use these personas to make decisions as you're defining your products? A few hands disappeared there. Okay. The personas have in many ways not been able to realize the vision that we had for them in terms of being a guiding light for product teams. And we think there are two fundamental problems that have emerged in the way that people approach personas. First of all is that they think that creating a persona is a task that needs to get done. So somebody says, we need to have personas. So they contact marketing, or they contact us, and they say, could you make us personas? And in the end, we create this really beautiful, polished, printout of a persona that, we think is fantastic because we've spent a lot of time, researching this audience and trying to understand it. And then this is served to the product team like a hot meal. And the product team takes one look at it and is like, oh, this looks really fancy, why should I care? And they never look at it again, which is quite demotivating for the people that actually created the persona. Second of all, we very often come across personas that are based on demographics. And that's easy to use demographics to describe your audience, because that's information that we usually have at hand. But that doesn't give us any sort of idea about what the behaviors of your demographics. It focuses on surface level descriptions. And that introduces all sorts of biases into the picture. I mean, if you describe a early 40s blonde person that has a family and lives in the suburbs to somebody, that may invoke a professional, educated, successful woman for some people, but for others, it may invoke a rather dim-witted, unfortunate person. So that means that the persona is completely useless, and the team is not working based on the same assumptions. So the MPACT kit is a way to bring the creation of the personas to the team that needs the personas, and so that they can make them at the point where when they actually need them for the purpose of the project that they're working through. It's a facilitated workshop activity that through a day's work, we can create the personas that the team needs for a project that is starting. And it's then a simple enough process so that, you know, next time a team is assembled to work through another feature or another product, they can then again create the personas that they need. The basis of the persona is that it is behavior-based, and in the toolkit we emphasize or we highlight some behaviors we think are most important in the sector that the kit is created for. The key here is that this is a collaborative thing. And we think it's very important because a persona is only useful to a team if the team has internalized and is intimately familiar with the persona and their behavior. And going through the structured conversation that the toolkit creates makes the people have that discussion so that they are, at the end, when they create the persona, they know exactly why the persona behaves the way that behaves and where it is coming from. And that makes it easy for them that at the moment when they need to make design decisions in the heat of the production, then they can reach for that knowledge and that understanding and make the right choice for the user instead of just basing it on their preference or what's easiest so that they can, get things done.
So like Magga Dora was saying, we're talking about behavior-based personas, right? So I think many of us in the room and then at MadPow as well, we understand that consumer behavior specifically is the most critical and the most important part of a persona. And that is because it really allows the design team to envision how that persona is going to react in different situations with different products and services that they're interacting with. And at the end of the day, the teams who are using MPACT, using the toolkit to build these personas, they are also getting some really deep, rich insight into what those customers might be, thinking, feeling, saying, doing, which, of course, at the end of the day, helps us to integrate more of that customer understanding into daily company activities. And in addition to that, what MPACT and these behavioral-based personas allow us to do is also to represent really complex behavioral variables as actionable items. And I'll kind of explain more about that in a second. But also, again, Magga Dora hit on this, but moving away from the marketing demographics that we've seen over the years that we know are just not enough for personas today. So the way that we portray behavior in these personas are with something called behavioral attributes. And you can see one up here, financial mentality. It's placed on a scale, so on one extreme to the other. And for example, financial mentality is behavioral attribute. You may have a persona who falls as more of like a micromanager with their finances. They want to see every detail. They're checking in on their mobile app every single day, that kind of person. Or you might have someone who's more of like the set it and forget it type, a very hands-off person. And we know that people usually fall somewhere on the scale, somewhere in the middle, but it's important for us when basing design decisions to base them off the extremes. So also just to point out that when teams are assigning the personas, say they find that this persona is much more of a micromanager, we always encourage them to look back at their research and base those decisions on very sound qualitative and quantitative research. So with MPACT, this is, I'm sure we've seen a lot of you at the booth. It's laid out, but this is one of the cards, one of the behavioral attribute cards. We mapped 17 different behavioral attributes that we have seen time and time again with different financial clients that we have served. And so we've pulled 17 of those behaviors that we think are really important that consumers usually show when managing or dealing with finances. And then on the card, the back of the card also has design tips. So not only are you walking away, not only are you walking away with understanding this persona and their behaviors, but you're also walking away with concrete ways to design for them, which we find is something, again, lacking in how personas are usually done. So just to kind of wrap up everything that we've been talking about, MPACT and this gamified way to create personas, first and foremost, it's important that they're research-oriented. So not only is our toolkit research-oriented, because we base it off the actual research that we've done with financial clients in the past, but the teams that are using the game to create personas are relying on their own research to make the decisions about their behaviors and motivations. Also, they're behavior-based, of course, and they're context-based. So we kind of hit upon this a little bit, that these aren't enterprise-wide personas, so they're not something that's just going to be kind of generally created and stuck in a drawer somewhere, but they're for a specific purpose, a specific project. And they're collaborative and action-oriented. So teams are working together, having really rich dialogue, having rich discussion, and hopefully debate about who their customers really, really are, and empathizing with them on a deep level, and walking away with design tips to where they can say, what's next? How do we move forward?
So we would very much like to talk to you if we could make an impact at your organization, or if you feel like you would like to make an impact. We are out in the hallway, and please stop by our booth, and or send us an email at impact@madpower.com, and we'll have a conversation. Thank you.